Welcome to another exciting episode of Mind Your Mind, the podcast. My name is Joshua Awesome. I am your host. Many like to call me the Awesome Coach. So we have a very special guest here on this episode. And like you possibly know, I always say every guest is a special guest. Why? Because every individual is special and unique. Comes with certain uniqueness to them, and I'm deeply grateful for this guest of mine. Before that, I'd like to quickly express my gratitude to my friends at Organo for sponsoring and supporting this podcast. Organo Gold brings the treasures of the earth to the world, and as you see their product lineup, if you haven't switched your coffee, I encourage you to switch. In this episode, I'm actually having a mocha with my guest.
It's one of my favorites.
Interestingly, she's just also expressed, that the mocha is her favorite. And talking about that, I'd like to welcome Stembiso Pride to Mind Your Mind podcast. She used to be an advertising professional and has now, pivoted, as she says, to become a mental wellness coach. How would you like to introduce yourself if you were to introduce yourself?
In all honesty, I think you've done a stellar job in saying that. I used to be in advertising and marketing. It's still part of me. But I think the biggest part of what I do now is mental wellness coaching. And I work with, coaches, psychologists, and social workers and different healthcare practitioners to make sure that we bring mental wellness and mental health aid to individuals. So
amazing. There you heard it from her. And so in this episode, one of the things that I'd like to begin with is a conversation we had backstage before we began this podcast conversation. Now, many times companies, organizations have crisis within their organization where people break down. In some cases, an ambulance arrives to take the people away. My belief is that just as first aid is not a nice to have, okay, a first aider is a must have in companies. That is the same way I believe that African organizations now need to have an African mental health first aider within their organization, which is where I am humbled to come in as a coaching psychologist and the founder of African Institute of the Mind. And this is what we were talking about backstage because of a conversation that we had. And it's, for me, very important. Why is it important? Because it helps us to be proactive.
Yeah.
This is the reason why I wrote this book, Mind Your Mind, How to Stress Less and Achieve More. You want to talk to that a little bit from your perspective?
So I think that's such a powerful space, in terms of making sure that we have people on the ground and we've trained and skilled businesses and companies to be able to be the first point of containment when it actually does happen. Because, we come with a lot when we come into the workspace, any space that we are in. And oftentimes, in the past, I'd say we would ridicule people or feel like someone is acting out of character a little bit on that specific day, or if someone has a breakdown, it's something to talk about, it's something to skinner about, And as we are growing and humanity is growing and understanding that you need to be sensitive to people because you don't know what they come with when you first meet them, just having somebody on the ground or having companies understand how to deal with a situation like that is crucial, a crucial thing, you know. And I think as we are growing, as organizations are growing, mental health aid is going to be a key thing that we have in all organizations. If your organization does not know how to approach or assist someone that is going through a crisis, it doesn't have to be hysterical, it doesn't have to be a complete breakdown, but just how you can help someone navigate in the day, in the moment, is going to be a crucial thing.
Thank you, Stembisos. And talking about navigating, in chapter 13 of Mind Your Mind, How to Stress Less and Achieve More, the chapter is titled Mindful Growth, a Solution to Stress and Burnout. And I opened that chapter with a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson: what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us.
Yes, yeah. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that
yes,
is so powerful.
Yes. And that chapter pretty much was born from a conversation with the vice president for learning and development for Microsoft Global, Charles Morris, and he interestingly created a program inside Microsoft that helped them to be able to manage stress and lower it so that their people are not constantly in a state of burnout.
Sure.
And I believe that as Africans, we need to begin to embrace the proactive side more than being reactive, where the ambulances then have to show up. Because when we are proactive, we look after our stresses, our stressors, and create a psychological safe space and quote for people and professionals in organizations where people feel comfortable to be able to talk about their mental health crisis. Talking about Mind Your Mind, what chapter stands out for you?
I think for me, so what you've spoken about now is so important, because you speak about Microsoft, and how I normally explain to people is that your mind is like a computer box. It's so important what you give it and what you feed it, right? It's important that you put in these programs that come from Mind Your Mind, if you may. It's important to put in the programs that come in from a book like this one, right? Because what you are then doing is almost like putting in a system that when the crisis does occur, it can actually boot it into being able to manage, anything that is happening in your mind at that point, or the crisis that you have in that situation. So speaking about Microsoft is such an important thing, because your mind is like a computer box, and that's how I always explain it to people. And I think for me, one of the chapters that I actually did enjoy when I read through it, it's Finding Flow.
Nice. And Finding Flow is chapter 6. Okay, nice. Okay, tell us about why Finding Flow, and you want to talk to us about that. The quote there says, "Look closely at the present you are constructing. It should look like the future you are dreaming."
I think for me, it's so important to be able to, earlier on when we spoke again as well, I spoke about how some of the techniques that I've learned, also following you and, having this robust relationship has always kind of helped me manage and being able to just take a step back a little bit, and not realizing before that I was always on autopilot. I was always like this busy, and I could not, even though I understood mental health holistically, like I said, my mom's a nurse. She's very aware of mental health, and it's a lifestyle for her more than anything. So she's always been able to manage and assist us a lot in the home front, right? But the more we also learning, and now that I'm in the mental health space as well, it's really helped me to just almost kind of take a step back and be able to assess myself and assess the next person. Because I think a lot of the times is we just busy. It's just busy, and we don't get the time to actually look at why we're busy, what we are doing. The one thing that you have taught me is if you need to do it quickly, you actually need to just take a little more time relaxing. I'm paraphrasing, right? Because it's always easy to get up and just go. Get up and not think about stuff, you know? And the best practice now for me, which I've learned from you, is to actually take time in the morning and just internalize.
There we go.
Be grateful. Wake up in the morning and just thank the day. You know, thank myself for waking up. You know, thank the moment. Thank everything. Take a deep breath in. Do the affirmations. You know, be grateful in that moment and just take time. You know, 10 minutes. And if I'm too busy, 30 minutes. If I feel like a lot is happening. But that is actually how you find your flow. That is how you actually start being able to piece things together and map things together in your mind, because you've taken the time to just realize that it doesn't always have to be a rush. It doesn't always have to be so, you know, because when you start doing it like that, that's where the mistakes are made. You don't have time to think about the day. You don't always have to wake up in the morning and get your laptop or get your phone, and that's the first thing that you do, because you're not in sync with yourself. You're not aligned with yourself. You're not aligned with what you need for the day. And I think a lot of us, we're programmed like that. It's so easy to, I mean, I was in advertising for such a long time that it was always get up and go, that I didn't have time to take a step back.
You know what I like? I like the fact that you touched on gratitude, because, you know, and that one actually comes from chapter 1. When you begin with what I call breathing beginnings, and you are in that gratitude mode, what you are doing is actually you are nourishing your soul. And gratitude is the vitamin of the soul. Now, so when you talk about finding flow, and I'm actually opening the chapter right now, there are 2 actionable activities at the end of finding flow. The first one is accept it. Instead of wishing it were different today. Okay, so many times people don't embrace the messiness and ambiguity of life, rather than seeking simplistic solutions to complex problems. So I like the way you chose that, because many people don't have that accept it kind of mindset. Because accept yourself.
Accept yourself.
Yes.
That's the key.
Because this body of yours is where you're going to live for the rest of your life on the planet. So accept it. And whatever it is for you, accept it. All right? And the second actionable activity is failure feeling is simply a feeling. Feel it. And then I say that there is some experience, regardless of how discouraging it proves to be. Embrace it. There is some treasure trapped in the trash.
And I think, saying those 2 especially is because that is how you navigate yourself then, But I think a lot of the time we're never taught, when a tragedy happens, it's always easy to get that shock and want to tell everyone else around you what is happening, but not taking the time to actually digest it and looking at how you can actually maneuver and get through it, and actually now start being in a silent space with yourself, within your mind, and then being able to overcome it, So I think a lot of us, some of the techniques that we are learning within the book is stuff that we didn't know. It's concepts that we knew about perhaps or heard about, but it's not easy to practice. And now it's practice states. It's not, acceptance is not an easy thing to practice, because every day, I just recently buried my uncle,
Condolences.
You know, and I think with everyone else in the whole story and the picture, I find myself being in mental health and mental wellness. It's now me actually working through the practice and process for everyone to learn how to accept. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy. You know, so when life circumstances and crisis happens, acceptance is not the first point of call. It's not the easiest thing to do. But the practice every single day then becomes something that you need to start doing. You know, so the tools help you to unpack yourself even more.
You know, it's quite insightful that you used the accept it and then highlight the need for us to even sometimes accept loss.
Yes.
And our sincere condolences to you and your family at this time. However, it's important that every one of us comes to a realization that life is a gift.
It really is.
And you will not always have it as you do. So accepting it, the gift of life now, is important. Because if we don't, we're delaying what we should, embrace. Which is why for me, I wake up every day being my best self. Somebody says, "Are you always like this?" I'm like, well, here is it. Awesome is not just my name, it's also my nature. And that's why in the book, I try to highlight what it means. I wake up every day to activate. A, W, wonderful. E, experiences. S, so. O, others. M, may. And E, enjoy.
Sure.
So I wake up every day activating wonderful experiences so others may enjoy. And sometimes when I show up in a meeting, that's me. I'm trying to activate wonderful experiences so others may enjoy. This podcast, Mind Your Mind podcast, is designed to do that. To activate wonderful experiences so others may enjoy.
You know, I think when I first met you, and I there's one thing that I can say about you is that the consistency of energy is the same, right?
Thank you.
It's the same, right? And I think unpacking even what awesome means is actually such a critical thing, because that is what we need to do as humanity, right?
Yes.
Where we are activating
Yes.
ourselves, and
Yes.
part
Yes.
of us being in a space where we are understanding our mental health, are understanding our core self, right, is actually learning ourselves and being able to activate the core of who you are in order for you to be able to, I know I'll say, make others enjoy. It's but it's actually the core of you activating, that kindness space, that space of making sure that other people around you are well, and you bring that in your energy, you bring that in who you are. So it's quite an important
I am
thing.
so grateful for that perspective. I think every one of us, if we just choose to be kind and support ourselves as Africans, if you're Asian, American, Indian, whatever, the one color that should be recognized by all of us is the color of humankind.
Kindness. Oh, I love that. I really love that.
Yes,
I love
it's
that.
humankind. And I like to phrase it this way. Human plus kind equals humankind.
Oh, and that is why we say be kind, because we're using that humankind to activate the who we need to be. The characteristics of this humankind is kindness. I really love that, you know.
Yeah, so human plus kind equals humankind. And that's who we need to be for each other, regardless of who it is that we are in contact with. So show up as a human and be kind. That's humankind.
And I mean, going into the box winning, you know, that actually is us seeing human kindness and humanity on a rugby field. You know what I mean? And how it then activated everybody else around to walk in that kindness, to walk in that remembrance of actually this is who we are. We are stronger together because we need to hold each other's hands in order for us to be able to win the great battles, you know. And I think for me, when I speak about it as well in different platforms, I always say the battle of the mind at that point in time was very high, you know, because how do you win successfully, you know, semifinals, quarterfinals, and now the finals? You had to have had humankind walking with you in order for you to be able to overcome that mental battle.
Profound. You know, as you talk about, you know, the recent rugby win for South Africa, the one value that comes to my mind is passion.
Sure.
So when I think about passion, the one thing that is always very important is that if we breathe it, we live it, people will literally feel it from us. And I think that's the one thing that I want to believe stood out for our rugby team. The Springboks sprang daily with that passion, and it united them, which is something the country can learn from. All the 9 provinces, you know, can learn from that. When we're interconnected, when we're singing from the same hymn sheets, we're able to create symphony that creates a tune that helps the heart to beat right.
Yes. And I think, you know, for me, the biggest thing about it is that we all came and we all have collective consciousness at that point in time, because we all were singular in terms of what we wanted as a country and as a people. You know? The passion shown on the ground, and I was saying earlier on as well, is that the one thing for me that stood out is that I saw mental health on a rugby field. You know, the fact that they kept on pushing, and the fact that they then had a mental strategy.
Oh yes, they were resilient.
You know what I mean? They were so resilient to know that that is all they can do for the country. You know, they might not be able to give thousands and millions or whatever, but just bringing hope back home was the one thing that they were fighting for.
And on that note, hope means have only positive expectations.
Sure.
Stembiso, thank you so much for honoring us with your
Thank
presence. It has been a pleasure to have chatted with Stembiso Pridey. She is a mental wellness coach. As we said from the start, she used to be in advertising and is now in this wellness space. I really hope that this has been insightful for you. And if it has been, please go ahead and share this. But more importantly, I'd like to leave you with a very important thought. My name is Joshua at mindinstitute.africa, and that's my email, by the way. Remember, until next time when we come your way, don't ever forget that for you to have a better life, it must begin by having a better brain. Bye for now.